Hey everyone, welcome to Dalton Draws, a series where the title tells you exactly what the show is. This is part of a 5-episode series for Super Smash Bros. Each episode will cover characters introduced in a different game in the series. This week's episode focuses on the characters added to the series in Super Smash Bros. Melee. Just like in the first episode, I took the characters out of the sketch for the full poster, put them into a new canvas, and expanded each sketch to fill out their pose. Unlike with the Smash 64 cast though, I don't think there was anyone I was able to sketch without reference. The more simple designs I'm not 100% familiar with, and some characters with simple designs in their own games have more complicated designs in Smash Bros. Pichu and Mr. Game & Watch possibly could be drawn without reference, but I still wanted to get the proportions correct. I should also note once again that Echoes will be waiting for the final episode, especially since there's a bunch for Melee characters. Then, with everyone sketched, I moved on to the proper illustrations. Peach is one of those characters I was referring to, who has a simple design in the mainline Mario series, but a much more ornate look in Smash Bros. I love playing her in Smash Bros. She's got a very silly moveset, and I like the sassier personality she has in these games. I don't really bother with the turnip attack much, but I do love the rare time you pull up a Bob-omb instead. That's good for a laugh. She's also one of my favorites to play in the sports games. I might make her one of my mains in Ultimate. I love how Bowser is represented in the Smash Bros. Series and his more vicious, threatening design. He's fun in the RPGs, but in the main series he's not much of a threat and not super interesting. I especially love the introduction of Giga Bowser in Melee. Bowser growing to monstrous sizes isn't unique to the series, but Giga Bowser is a much cooler way of doing that. And after some of the stuff in Super Mario Odyssey, I don't think it'd even be out of place in the main games. Bowser is fun to play in Smash, though I do miss his weird little slide across the ground from Melee. I don't play the Ice Climbers much at all, to be honest. They're an alright inclusion, and I definitely missed them in Smash 4, but they aren't one of my mains. I wasn't a fan of their stage in Melee, but Summit from Brawl is great, and the revamped version in Ultimate looks so good. They were fun to draw, and they're fun to play as, even if I'm not great with them. Glad they're back, they're staples of the series at this point. Okay, so for some reason Sheik comes before Zelda in the official numbering for Smash Ultimate. I thought maybe she appeared first in the Melee intro or something, but nope. Zelda appears immediately before Sheik in that. So I looked a little bit more and found that Sheik actually appears first in the E3 trailer for Melee, which the intro is based on. The shot of Zelda from the intro is a shot of Sheik in that trailer instead. It's not too exciting, but, it's still kind of interesting. I don't play Sheik much in the Smash Bros. Games, but Sheik is cool. Kinda wish they had gone with the design from Hyrule Warriors, though. That one is really cool. Plus, it would have fit in with how Ultimate is handling Zelda characters. The Ultimate design is based on the Sheikah armor from Breath of the Wild, but it would have been cool to represent that spin-off instead. Oh well. Speaking of which, I love the design they chose for Zelda. While my personal favorite design for her comes from Skyward Sword, the one from Link to the Past and Link Between Worlds is also fantastic. The way they adapted it for Smash Bros. Looks great. I've never played much of Zelda in the previous Smash Bros. Games, and part of that is because I just wasn't a fan of her design in those games. The Ocarina of Time one was fine, I guess, but I really don't like the design from Twilight Princess. That's also going to come up a bit later with Ganondorf. I'm so glad they finally changed up the designs for these characters with Ultimate. The Twilight Princess designs just aren't very interesting. What's up, Doc? Honestly, out of all the characters in the series, I feel like Dr. Mario is one of the weirdest inclusions. Like, yeah, he's a clone, but not an Echo Fighter. But he's literally the exact same person as another character in the roster. That's just a little bizarre, Still, I actually kind of prefer Dr. Mario to regular Mario. I don't play him as much, but I like that he doesn't have Flood. Though on that note, why does Mario still have Flood? I feel like they should give him the hammer, since he's had it in pretty much every RPG. It's just more representative of him. But I digress. I never play as Pichu, for obvious reasons, and yet I love that he's back in Ultimate. He's pretty much a joke character, but that's alright. I also love that he has a Team Skull costume in Ultimate. That's just great. I kinda preferred Falco to Fox back in Melee. Nowadays I'd rather play Fox. A few of the changes made to distinguish the two over the years have just made me prefer the original character. He's one of my favorite Nintendo characters, though. It's not that common to have a Nintendo hero who's also just kind of a jerk. Most of them are either silent protagonists or just generic nice guys. I mean, I guess you don't play as Falco, so he's not a protagonist, but he still counts. I recall playing as him a lot in Star Fox Assault's multiplayer, which, if you haven't played that, do yourself a favor and play it. It's so much fun, and that's part of why it's my favorite Star Fox game. Marth was one of the most interesting inclusions in Melee to me. I had no familiarity with the Fire Emblem series at that point. I played Melee a lot later than most people, so I didn't get a GameCube until 2004. And at that point, Fire Emblem had debuted in the US, but I still hadn't heard of it, and we wouldn't get Marth's game until a few more years after that. Nowadays, I'm a big fan of the series. Like a lot of people, I got into the series with Awakening, but out of the 3 games on 3DS, my favorite has to be Echoes. It was just such a big step up for the presentation. I still want to go back and play some of the older games too. When I eventually get to Ike, I have a bit of a story to tell about trying his game. But back to Marth, I love his red and black designs from Melee. Most of my familiarity with him doesn't come from Smash or Fire Emblem though, it actually comes from Codename Steam on the 3DS. I wasn't a big fan of Young Link in Melee, but I'll probably play him more in Ultimate. I'd rather play as an adult Link, but he's the only option for playing as the Hero of Time incarnation of the character. I like how because of the changes to Link in Ultimate, him and Young Link are now a little more distinct. I of course grew up with the N64 Zeldas, especially since I didn't get a GameCube for years. I got stuck in Ocarina of Time for a while as a kid because I was scared of the Wall Masters, and in that time I picked up Majora's Mask, which is arguably the scarier game, but I had less trouble with it at the time. Both are real classics, and I love the 3DS remakes. I am so glad Ultimate brought Ganondorf back to his Ocarina of Time design. The Ganon from Twilight Princess is so bland and generic, he just looks like your standard evil lord kind of villain. The Ocarina of Time design just has more personality, and it's more fitting for how he plays in Smash Bros. As someone who mostly grew up with the N64 games, this is always the design I go back to for Ganondorf, though the Wind Waker one is pretty good too. In the Smash series, he's fun to play as, though him being a clone of Captain Falcon is a little weird. The more they've distinguished him over the years, the more interesting he's gotten. I like the sound of the changes they've made in Ultimate, so I can't wait to try him out again. Similar to Ness, I remember it took forever to unlock Mewtwo. That's something I kinda miss with the later games, trying to figure out how to unlock everyone. But with the internet nowadays, a lot of that magic is gone because the info is easily accessible. Mewtwo has always been one of my favorite Pokemon, partially because of the first movie, but I don't play him in Smash. He's just too floaty. I liked him a bit more in Smash 4, but he's not someone I'd play much. It's our boy Roy. I really don't have much to say about him, just like with Marth. I haven't had a chance to play any of the GBA Fire Emblems yet. I want to go back to them at some point, but my only options are to find a physical copy or download it on the Wii U, and I really don't want to use my Wii U much anymore. In terms of Smash Bros though, I've always preferred him to Marth. He's just more fun to use. I love how explosive all of his attacks are. That makes him stand out from the other sword users. He was one of the Melee characters that took the longest to draw. I think the only other one that took this long was Ganondorf, who took about 2 hours. Roy took about an hour and a half. The two of them were also recorded in the same session, so that took a bit. And now, from one of the slowest characters to draw to one of the fastest. Mr. Game & Watches, oh, will you look at that? We're out of time and he's already done. On to editing the poster. I had to move some characters a bit more this time. When I did the main sketch, I wasn't sure how many Echo Fighters there'd be, so I just incorporated the Melee ones down here from the start. I think it works better without them though, and it ended up taking a little less room than expected. Which is good because there's still a lot of characters to draw. And that's it for part 2. If you want to see the characters as they're drawn, follow me on Twitter. And if you want to support the content I create and help me to continue with it, you can support this channel on Patreon. All content on there is available for anyone pledging even $1 a month. Thanks for watching. Later.